At its core, directed consultation is a professional development structure that helps teachers implement evidence-based practices in an effort to better support their students. That said, directed consultation is more than plugging in stock interventions with a hope that the intervention will somehow fit a given classroom ecology. Directed consultation uses information from teacher interviews and classroom observations to tailor interventions for individual classrooms and students across behavioral, academic, and social domains of functioning. The idea that classrooms are dynamic spaces that change based on interactions among teachers, students, and peers is foundational to directed consultation. Given that schools and classrooms are dynamic spaces, directed consultation is a process rather than a single event. Within this process, effective interventions must be adaptable over time to meet the changing needs of students. Student behavior changes over time, both appropriate and inappropriate behavior, and interventions must adapt for this eventuality. Effective interventions are ecologically grounded to account for differences in interactions within a given environment. Classrooms are very fluid spaces. Students may move in and out of classrooms and peer groups for a variety of reasons, which changes the feel of the environment, for better or for worse. Interventions must be linked to this ecology. Effective interventions leverage teacher strengths while supporting teachers in areas of need. We all have strengths and weaknesses. Focusing solely on remediating weaknesses can be a very long and difficult process. It's really important that we attempt to address weaknesses in intervention content, delivery, implementation, etc. However, our contention is that using teacher strengths as leverage points provides a more immediate starting point for student support. So a key first question asked of teachers is, what are you good at? Successful directed consultation uses these leverage points to make immediate changes while supports are arranged for weaknesses in order to increase the capacity of the teacher over time. It's generally not a quick fix, but the process does increase the capacity of the teacher to handle more and more complex situations on their own, and also provides opportunities to mentor other teachers as well. Intervention specialists are individuals who take the lead role in the directed consultation process. In many ways, they are the glue that holds the team together. The intervention specialist could be anyone in the school. Some examples are teachers, guidance counselors, and school psychologists. In some ways, the title of the person is not relevant. What is relevant is the skill set that the intervention specialist possesses. First and foremost, the intervention specialist must have a clear understanding of evidence-based practices across academic, behavioral, and social domains of functioning. However, understanding must go beyond merely repeating interventions as described in textbooks and journal articles. Intervention specialists must be able to adapt interventions to meet the unique ecology of each classroom. This may mean that a given intervention may look very different across settings and teachers. So you may be asking, where does the intervention specialist gain the knowledge needed to serve in this role? Each module in this sequence is designed to provide you with the content necessary to serve as an intervention specialist of sorts. Intervention specialists must have excellent communication skills that promote trust and collaboration among teams of teachers and administrators. No one likes to be thought of as anything less than a stellar teacher. The conversations between teachers and intervention specialists are often very frank. For example, a teacher may confide that they are out of ideas for dealing with a student issue. Laying weaknesses out on the table takes courage, and intervention specialists should acknowledge those vulnerabilities via positive support and confidentiality. Third, and related to communication, is that intervention specialists need to understand a teacher's perspective. That does not mean the intervention specialist always agrees with what a teacher may be doing, but rather gains an understanding of why a teacher responds to circumstances in the classroom in a certain way. Understanding each teacher's strengths and weaknesses help in the identification of key leverage points whereby teacher strengths are used to support students. A key is to build the capacity of each teacher as they support their students. What is it that intervention specialists do? Well, first, they model a strengths-based approach to solving problems. Again, intervention specialists will focus mainly on using a teacher's strengths to support students. That doesn't mean the weaknesses are ignored, but rather fixed along the way. Second, intervention specialists focus mainly on teacher behavior as a central part of managing classroom instruction and students' behavior. When you think about it, we have very little actual control over another person's behavior. If a teacher is delivering instruction and a student decides to stand up and shout profanities, the teacher can administer all types of negative consequences, such as verbal reprimands or sending the student to the office, etc., but the behavior still happened. Simply removing the student likely reinforces the problem behavior. Student gets to avoid a non-preferred academic task, and it may actually reinforce the teacher's behavior of removing the student from class. No one likes to have a student yelling profanities while they're teaching. However, there are teacher behaviors that can be changed as well, such as identifying the function of student problem behavior, understanding the role of peers in promoting appropriate and inappropriate behavior that can help increase student engagement and prevent issues like these from escalating and resulting in removal from the class. Third, intervention specialists help teachers identify effective practices that they already implement that could be strengthened and extended. Again, intervention specialists try to find existing leverage points for more immediate impact on student supports. Fourth, intervention specialists promote solution-based discussions among colleagues. This is where communication skills become very important. Teachers are positioned to be resources for each other to support new collaborations among teachers. Finally, the directed consultation process enables teachers to make connections from their classroom management practices to their social relationships in the classroom. So teacher to student and student to student relationships and their management of instruction as well. There are three general components of the directed consultation process: ongoing data collection, tailored foundational training, and specific implementation consultation. We will discuss each of these components in turn. A first step in developing supports is to develop some insight regarding the interactions that occur in classrooms. Data collection, both prior to, during, and after intervention, can be used to help select and modify supports. The process of data collection begins with a scouting report. Oftentimes, sports teams will send coaches to watch opponents' games in order to determine key tendencies and strengths and weaknesses of teams. The scouting report has a similar purpose: to determine key attributes of the teacher and students. In other words, what is working well and what could use some support along the way. This initial information is used to drive intervention development. Data collection should not stop after the initial intervention has been selected. As discussed earlier, interventions often need to be modified in order to meet the supports needs of students in dynamic settings. Data can help in this process of implementing, tweaking a little more, this iterative process of intervention development. Finally, data can be used as part of an outcomes assessment. In other words, did the intervention do what it was supposed to do? As stated earlier, the main goal of the scouting report is to help identify potential issues across behavioral, academic, and social domains in the classroom. The scouting report process will also help identify leverage points that can be used to make positive impacts in the classroom. These leverage points are often areas where students and teachers come together in a positive manner. Good student-teacher rapport is just one example of a leverage point. Positive rapport can be used beyond social aspects of the classroom and may help with academic and behavioral issues as well. The idea is to use what is already there to affect positive change. The scouting report process is comprised of both pre-observational interviews and initial observations of school settings. As a starting point, the intervention specialist interviews teachers and/or others involved with a given classroom. The goal of these interviews is to obtain information and also gain the trust of teachers. The interview should be a safe place where teachers feel free to speak their mind without fear of being judged. The goals of the pre-intervention interview are: 1. Assess teacher mindset and willingness to make adjustments to their teaching. Some teachers will be more than willing to make changes to their teaching or their behavior management or the way they engage with students socially. Other teachers are going to be hesitant. For teachers who are hesitant, start with small changes that will show positive outcomes quickly. Use these positive experiences to gain trust in the program. 2. Assess the level of cooperation and collaboration among teachers if working as a team. Teamwork is a very important element of successful programs, particularly in middle and high schools. It's very important to build trust around team members. They should be able to go to each other and confide in each other and seek advice from each other. Team building activities may take a little time to start, but may be worth the increased level of cohesion among team members. 3. Assess perceptions of teachers, related service faculty, and building level administrators regarding strengths and needs of the school and the classroom context as it relates to the focal areas that you're going to address. It's important to talk with a variety of people. You'll likely find that there are differing opinions on the issues within a classroom or a school. You'll also find that the issues generally coalesce around particular domain areas, such as behavior or academics. A key here is to reinforce the idea that behavioral, academic, and social domains work together in a context. So what may look like a behavioral issue could be the result of social or academic issues, and so on. 4. Identify current initiatives that connect with the focal areas. Teachers, particularly veteran teachers, can be hesitant to change because they have seen the latest and greatest rolled out on an almost yearly basis. In the spirit of efficiency, it's important to use what's already in place when possible. Intervention specialists need to remember that someone brought a new initiative into the school and is likely very attached to that initiative. Complete reversal or removal of the initiative may be a blow to someone's ego, so you need to tread lightly. 5. Set expectations for confidentiality, collaboration, and for solution-oriented focus. Be explicit from the start. Let teachers know that you are there to support them. And what they're telling you, outside of anything illegal, is going to stay with you. 6. Review focal areas. What are the key areas that are going on? What are teachers saying? What are the key areas of need? What do you observe later on? What are you going to observe as those key focal areas? 7. Identify informal and formal leaders at grade level and in the school. Who are your go-to people? This is a little tricky sometimes. Sometimes formal leaders, the team leader or the administrator, are not the real leaders of the team. Try to identify the key leaders. Sometimes it's sort of a more veteran teacher who is not an administrator. Maybe they're no longer the team leader, but people look up to that person. Find that person. Try to identify the key leaders. 8. Make a plan for managing your time. Serving as an intervention specialist can be a very time-consuming endeavor. Try to make a schedule and stick to it. So schedule your activities out. Be efficient with your time and as you support teachers in the building. The pre-intervention questions are linked to the scouting report goals in some ways. The questions listed are a good starting point in order to get a picture of the classroom situation. That said, you can move away from the script as needed in order to get information. Follow-up questions can be a key tool. Classroom observations are key aspects of the scouting report process. By their nature as indirect assessments, interviews may not always match every part of the functioning of classrooms. Your observations can be used to verify teacher concerns and information or bring new perspective to issues. The goals of observations are to 1. Identify potential leverage points in the classroom, amenable areas in classroom interactions and instruction. What are the teachers' and student strengths? Can these be used to support issues across behavioral, academic, and social domains of functioning? 2. Identify potential focal areas. Where do you want to apply the intervention? What's the important issues? 3. Identify the productive and problematic peer social dynamics, how different students engage with and are engaged by the social system. Social dynamics are often an overlooked aspect in classrooms. When you think about it, social standing is a huge issue for middle and high schoolers. It is imperative that you understand how the social system operates in a classroom. Encourage productive relationships. 4. Identify peer affiliations and social roles. Who hangs out with who? Who are the leaders, bullies, followers, etc.? Are these productive relationships? In our work with middle school teachers, we use the form shown on this slide as a tool for observation. As you will note, the purpose of this initial observation is to obtain information regarding the functioning of the class as a whole, or a system, if you will, not necessarily any one student. If you can understand the system, you will understand individual behavior within that system. The following pages contain a rating scale that we have used in our pre-intervention observations to move conversations forward, and then we use the same scale as a post-intervention measure. Notice that the scale's focus is on teacher behavior. Tailored foundational training provides a common set of experiences for teachers within a grade level or school building. Intervention specialists can then build on these common experiences in order to help teachers create environments conducive to learning. Common foundational or big picture topics include information about the use of data to drive prevention and intervention efforts, culturally responsive education competencies, ecologically based intervention options, understanding and changing environments to positively impact students, correlated constraints, where many related factors contribute to functioning, person-environment fit, skills matching specific environments, multi-factor interventions across behavioral, academic, and social domains, and linking modules to existing support materials. Core topics often build upon these foundational ideas and include the following: development and outcomes of students with emotional behavior disorders, the early warning system, culturally competent competencies, tiered systems of support, using attendance data and attendance support interventions, using academic grades data and interventions to support student grades, using school suspensions data and interventions to reduce student suspensions, collecting and using student adjustment data, the role of the intervention specialist. At this point, the intervention specialist has a solid idea regarding key focal points or general behaviors to address, and leverage points that can be used to help teachers address issues. Teachers have likely completed some foundational training that provides a common foundation for intervention. The next step in the process is for the intervention specialist to work with teachers on supporting the implementation of specific interventions. This implementation process generally begins with discussion between the intervention specialist and individual teachers or teams of teachers. In meetings with teachers or teams of teachers, intervention specialists should keep the following goals in mind. 1. Support teachers' willingness and ability to examine their current beliefs and practices that may be limiting their effectiveness in supporting students' productive engagement and social behavior. Part of this process is supporting teachers as they begin to open up about their teaching and classroom support skills. Help teachers understand that outcomes are about students. We all need to be willing to change to provide supports. 2. Give teachers room and ground To end each meeting with a sense of purpose and success. Always start meetings with something positive. Be sure to recognize appropriate change. Next, begin with a discussion of the current issues. Finally, end with a review of specific plans for change. You can also bring in stories of how these types of changes have helped other teachers. That said, you must be careful not to trivialize problems, but provide encouragement that there are ways to move forward. 3. Provide teachers with concrete evidence-based strategies. Evidence-based strategies are the key to making progress. Start with the intervention and then help teachers adapt that intervention to support students in their individual classrooms. 4. Guide and support team members to generate solution-oriented strategies and to reinforce one another's efforts to try new strategies in ways of understanding students' behavior, engagement, and social interaction in the classroom. Much of what happens during the school day occurs between teachers and their students. Working as part of a team can be difficult at first. Intervention specialists can facilitate interactions that result in a problem-solving orientation that leads to appropriate supports that cut across settings.